In the spring of 1901, off the coast of a tiny Greek island, divers pulled a calcified lump of corroded bronze from a Roman shipwreck. For decades, it sat in a museum basement, dismissed as a mere fragment of a statue or a misplaced tool. It would take a century of technological advancement, tools the creators of this object couldn't have imagined, to realize that what those divers had found was something impossible. It was a computer. Not from the age of Silicon Valley, but from the age of Socrates. A device so advanced that its like would not be seen again for another 1,000 years. This is the story of the Antikythera Mechanism, the ancient world's greatest forgotten genius. The story begins not in a laboratory, but in a storm. In 1900, a group of Greek sponge divers were blown off course and sought shelter in the lee of the island of Antikythera. When the weather cleared, they decided to dive. Expecting sponges, they instead found a nightmare. One diver surfaced, trembling, claiming he had seen a heap of dead, rotting people on the seafloor. What he had actually seen was a graveyard of bronze and marble statues, the cargo of a massive Roman merchant ship that had foundered around 60 BC. For a year, the Greek government and the divers worked to recover what they could. It was the first major underwater archaeological expedition in history. They brought up treasures that today define our understanding of Greek art, the Antikythera youth, exquisite glassware, and jars of fermented wine. But tucked away among the masterpieces was a fragmented box, roughly the size of a large book, covered in a century of sea growth. It was labeled simply as a fragment 1. It was ignored. The archaeologists of 1901 were looking for art, not technology. It wasn't until May 17, 1902, that Valerio Staes, a Greek archaeologist, noticed something peculiar. The fragment had dried out and split, revealing a gleaming gear wheel embedded deep inside the corrosion. He was baffled. To his knowledge, complex gearing of this scale didn't exist in the 1st century BC. Initial reactions were skeptical. Some argued it must have fallen off a modern ship centuries later. Others thought it was a mechanical toy. For 70 years, the mechanism remained an enigma. It was too fragile to clean and too dense to see through. It wasn't until the 1970s, when physicist Derek de Solla Price used gamma-ray and X-ray imaging, that the true scale of the mystery emerged. The images revealed a labyrinth of over 30 bronze gears, some with teeth as small as a millimeter. These weren't just random wheels, they were part of a sophisticated mathematical engine. The final breakthrough came in the 2000s with the Antikythera Mechanism research project. Using microfocus X-ray computed tomography, researchers were able to read a user manual inscribed on the back of the device. These tiny letters, some only a few millimeters tall, described what the machine was. It wasn't just a clock. It was a simulator of the heavens. The primary myth surrounding the Antikythera Mechanism is not about the device itself, but about the people who built it. For centuries, we have been taught a specific narrative of human progress, that the ancient Greeks were masters of philosophy, art, and drama, but lacked hard technology. We imagine them with simple tools, wooden levers, and primitive pulleys. In this version of history, technological complexity is a ladder that we only started climbing during the Renaissance. The myth suggests that the Dark Ages were the starting point for mechanical engineering, and that before then, the world was scientifically quiet. The evidence of the Antikythera fragments shatters that narrative completely. The machine was an analog computer designed to calculate the movements of the Sun, the Moon, and the 5 planets known to the ancients: Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. One dial tracked the Metonic cycle, a 19-year period used to reconcile the solar and lunar calendars. Another, the Saros cycle, could predict solar and lunar eclipses with staggering accuracy, down to the very hour and the direction the shadow would fall. But perhaps most human of all was a small subsidiary dial that tracked the 4-year cycle of the Pan-Hellenic Games. It told the user exactly when the next Olympics would begin. Who built it? While we have no signature, the evidence points toward the school of the great astronomer Hipparchus on the island of Rhodes, or perhaps the lineage of Archimedes. The mathematics required to calculate the lunar anomaly, the moon's varying speed as it orbits the Earth, was incredibly advanced. The mechanism used a pin and slot gear system to mimic this variable speed, a mechanical trick that wouldn't be seen again in Europe until the 14th century. This wasn't a one-off miracle, it was the pinnacle of a long-lost tradition of Greek mechanikoi. The legacy of the Antikythera mechanism is a humbling reminder that history is not a straight line. It is a series of peaks and valleys. When this ship sank in 60 BC, it carried with it a level of technology that was effectively erased from the Western world for over 1,000 years. After the fall of the Roman Empire, the specialized knowledge required to build such gears vanished from Europe. It was preserved in part by the Islamic world, eventually filtering back into the West to spark the creation of the first mechanical clocks in the Middle Ages. If this one device hadn't been found, if those divers hadn't been blown off course, we might still believe that the ancient world was incapable of such precision. It forces us to ask, what else was lost? The Antikythera mechanism proves that the modern world is much older than we think. We aren't the first generation to master the complexity of the machine, we are simply the latest to rediscover it. For over 2,000 years, the most complex object of the ancient world sat in the dark, silent depths of the Mediterranean. It survived the rise and fall of empires, the birth of modern science, and the Industrial Revolution, all while tucked inside a crust of sea salt and stone. It serves as a profound testament to human ingenuity and a warning about the fragility of knowledge. We often think of the past as a simpler time, a primitive prologue to our own greatness. But Fragment 1 tells us otherwise. It tells us that our ancestors were dreaming of the stars and building the tools to reach them long before we ever took our first steps into the light of the modern age. It reminds us that at the bottom of the sea, and in the dust of forgotten libraries, there are still pieces of our own story waiting to be found. If you enjoyed this journey into the mechanical heart of the ancient world, please like this video and share your thoughts in the comments. What do you think is still waiting to be discovered at the bottom of the ocean? And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss our next investigation into the shadows of history. In our next episode, we travel to the frost-covered forests of the Slavic lands to uncover the truth behind one of folklore's most terrifying and mysterious figures, Baba Yaga. Is she a monster, a guardian, or something far older? Join us as we step into the Iron Woods. Thank you for watching.